Last week, the Crows lost the game, their dignity and some of their best men on a black afternoon at the MCG. The 4 points are gone, half of the injured are still sidelined, but now it's time to restore wounded pride. The faithful are being tested here in Adelaide. Neil Craig's regiment, so reliable for so long, has made an uncharacteristically wobbly start to the season. Today they face Carlton and the loser will be on the rack tonight. Welcome to Amy Stadium, round 4, Adelaide against the Blues. Ideal to have with us dual Adelaide Premiership coach Malcolm Blight. Malcolm, is it too early to say the Crows are in trouble?
Hi, Tim. No, it's not too early. I think if they lose this, they're gone for the year. I mean, you just don't play finals 0-4.
Well, they play a team that they've beaten the last 7 times they've met them. That must be good for the confidence.
Well, I think it is. It's one of those teams you want to come up against now. And I'd be showing the record too of ours, Neil Craig. Hey, we've done well against this team in the last 6 starts. Why can't we do it for lucky 7?
Well, let's have a look at the ladder, and that's an uncharacteristic position for them. And if they lost today and if Richmond beat Melbourne, it would only get worse.
Well, I'm very proud club already in their short time, but they've never been there, Tim. So it's just hard to see that happening with the Adelaide team, so well drilled, as you've said.
Still trying to balance defence and attack. They got on a roll kicking high scores in the second half of last year, but they've reverted to type this year and they've averaged just under 60 points a game so far.
Yes, they have, and I guess they changed that about round 8, round 9 last year. He went more attacking, did the coach, and the players got the hang of it, but of course the other teams have had a bit of chance to study them, and the other thing they've had, Tim, is a lot of injuries.
I guess if there's a team they can take a chance against, it is Carlton, because the Blues have their own problems up forward, although they do have to overcome Carlton's brilliant midfield.
Yes, that's true, and probably the midfield's been a little bit down as we now watch Carlton led by Chris Judd back in the team, the captain.
Yes, and what a welcoming sight he is for the Blues. But they have the strong midfield, but with flaws at either end of the ground, and they've rejigged the balance with Waite and Thornton out from either end, and they're not replaced by talls.
No, they have not been, and I guess Favola game was always going to be that there was going to be an adjustment period, but look, their form's been okay, Tim. It hasn't been disastrous. They've won their one game, but as we look at the teams now and look up front, this is the Crows.
Yes, this is the Adelaide front half. Now, clearly they match up well against Carlton overall, but they're not kicking scores, although Dangerfield, Burton and Walker have produced little bags of goals so far this season, but there hasn't been support on any given day.
Interesting McLeod name there. I wonder if he'll start there. Knights, of course, a game back last week. He's very important across that half-forward line for the Crows.
Simon White, a first gamer in for Carlton. Brett Thornton, as I mentioned, out. The midfield battle is where it, I guess, will be won and lost, because there are a lot of quality players in there on both sides.
Yes, that's where the stars are. And they're the two ruckmen. Marriage and Cruiser's having a very good year, the young fella Cruiser. And look, they both on paper look pretty good midfields.
And Carlton, with their front half woes, I think have to rely on a midfield avalanche if they're to have a chance, because there aren't obvious targets there. They're probably going to rely on Betts and Yarram and Garlett, who comes in for the first time this year.
Yes, and also Halpin's been okay. He's kicked his little goals, and so's Lockie Henderson. Those two key forwards would need to get 7 or 8 between them, I think, today.
Adelaide also with the first gamer, as you saw, Phil Davis. We've got him at half back there. He comes in for his first game. He was taken in the 2008 draft at number 10, so they haven't hurried him along. So there are the lineups. Chris Judd back for the Blues after a 3-week suspension from the final series last year, and he must lift the group psyche of the Blues.
Tim, yes, he must, and he will, and he's a great player. We know that. He's a champ. He's also a very proud man. I can imagine him going very hard early.
And it'll be interesting to see whether we see obvious signs of a leadership input from him after the things that have been said about Carlton's lack of that, particularly off the field. Now, Patrick Dangerfield, injured in that terrible accident last week at the MCG. How that's not a push in the back, I do not know. You can make up your own mind about a report, but surely he's been pushed in the back.
Or how it's not around the neck or over the shoulder also, Tim. It's just disappointing that he didn't get a free kick for that at the very, very least.
He's back, and that is a relief. Apparently he had nothing more than a bit of jarring, a bit of soreness around the neck, and let's hope he can do his best for the Crows today. Kurt Tippett injured his ankle last week. He's in, kicked 55 goals last year. He has only 1 this year. That's disturbing for Adelaide. And
well, it is, and I mean, they're the difference. That the second tier at Adelaide really need to come on. There's 7 or 8 of them. Kurt Tippett's one of them, Dangerfield. They're the youngsters. They need to carry the load now.
Phil Davis, a first gamer for Adelaide, as I said, a number 10 draft selection in 2008. He's from North Adelaide, so he's a local and obviously has real quality about him. And Simon White comes from Carlton's rookie list. He's a Western Australian from Subiaco. Always good to see young players making their debuts, although White is 21, so he's no spring chicken as he plays his first game in the big league. It's a big day to be doing it. Carlton and Adelaide. The stakes very high here for both teams and for both coaches. If Adelaide lost their first four, Neil Craig would be feeling the heat. Brett Ratton's already feeling it for Carlton. The first bounce is coming up.
Welcome back to AAMI Stadium. Crows and Blues not far away. Winless so far this season. The Adelaide fans are getting a little bit restless. Thankfully, they're still cooking their meat on the barbecue out there at AAMI Stadium in the car parks. They haven't gone wild yet. A loss today could see that change. It could be a very, very different story. Locally, fans have been fairly reasonable about the Crows' injuries problems, so Neil Craig isn't coming under too much pressure yet. But as we said, a loss today could see all that change. I can tell you conditions down here are pretty impressive. A little bit overcast. There is a chance of a shower later this afternoon, but I don't think it's going to affect this match one little bit, so keep our fingers crossed on that. A lot of talk here and over the border about the extra coaches box. There it is there at the southern end of AAMI Stadium. You can see David Noble there taking up post in the coaches box. What has happened, the AFL has had a few complaints from Melbourne clubs, and they've said you can keep using the coaches box, but they've ripped out all the phone lines. There is no direct communication there. So the Crows can sit someone there. They can't have communication with them, though. Speaking of communication, one of the best in the business. We welcome her back to the commentary team. Good afternoon to Kelly Underwood.
Thanks for that, Corey. A lovely afternoon to be on the boundary for yourself, and all in readiness here for this early season do-or-die battle. The Crows, once impenetrable force, buzzing with anticipation and already a little bit of niggle as we get ready to get underway. Chris Judd won the toss, so the Blues will kick to left of screen. There was an earth tremor that shook Adelaide overnight. Tim, let's hope it's not a sign of things to come, because there'll be more than a tremor here this week if the Crows fail to get the points this afternoon.
I felt the earth move as I sat in my bed.